Welcome to Luminescence, Common Sense Spirituality, a show designed to share spiritual insights with you so that you can comprehend the universe and how it functions. You are about to experience raised consciousness. This is a place where spiritual principles are shared with the goal of assisting you to expand your understanding of both the seen and unseen worlds. Luminescence, Common Sense Spirituality helps you to discern the timeless truths handed down from wise sages through the ages, from the airy-fairy nonsense that is being taught today. Now, here is your host, Sharon Lynn Wyeth.
Welcome to Luminescence, Common Sense Spirituality. This show disseminates esoteric knowledge and common sense spirituality. I'm Sharon Lynn Wyeth, creator of Namology Science, the ability to know all about a person's personality and their soul's purpose simply from your name. Now, the beautiful inspirational song you just heard is called Shine by Dee L'Amour, and that's the music that we do at the beginning of our show, and we do her entire song at the end of the show because it's just uplifting. If you'd like to hear more of her music, you can by visiting DLamour.com. It's DLEMOR.com. Now, our topic today is how to physically protect oneself. Is there a need for protection since we live in a dualistic world where there is good, there's also its opposite, bad or evil? Are curses real? How does one protect oneself when meditating, having dreams, or when transversing the universe? And really, most importantly right now in this time and space is how does one protect oneself from neurotechnology as they're aiming at our brains? Our special guest today is Sandy Anastasi. Now, Sandy has been a professional psychic and astrologer since 1978. She holds a BS degree from Adelphi University and has teaching certifications in several fields. In addition to teaching, Sandy has worked as a safety engineer and owned her own small bookstore for many years before retiring to become a full-time psychic counselor, writer, and teacher. Her writings includes books on astrology, the Kabbala, and the Tarot, as well as psychic development. She is internationally renowned, and so are some of her students. So internationally renowned psychic channel Sandy has established herself as one of the preeminent teachers of our time. With more than 30 years of experience, she's a leading expert in psychic development, astrology, and tarot. And through Sandy's classes, workshops, lectures, and appearances, she's able to share her help and enhance their lives. Now, one of her students is John Edwards, whom many people have heard of and watched him on television. Sandy doesn't brag about all the people she's taught, but many of the names that you've heard of today have been and are continuing to be Sandy students. So, Sandy, welcome to Luminescence.
Thank you for having me on, Sharon. I love this show, and it's always a pleasure to be here.
Oh, I'm always excited to have you on. Okay, let's dig right in. Is there a need for protection today?
And you mentioned physical protection, so I'm going to, I guess, be talking about some physical means that you can create psychic protection.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and you know, psychic protection, I have always believed, has been an important part of our makeup for all of us. The average person who's if they're a follower of any known religion, if they get up in the morning and say their prayers, if they say their prayers before they go to bed at night, unbeknownst to themselves, while they're saying their prayers, they're bringing in psychic protection for while they sleep or what's going to be going on for their day. So prayer is one way of creating some psychic protection by actually putting yourself in the light, if you will. In the you mentioned when you and I talked before the show that we do live in a dualistic universe right now, and there are, and by the way, the universe as it's been constructed according to physics is dualistic. There are always energies that are coming into manifestation and energies that are going out of manifestation, and those two energies constantly balance one another out, and we know them as the dark and the light, or good and evil, or good and bad. So when you say those prayers at night or in the morning, you're consciously putting yourself in the light. You're putting yourself in the field of good. So that's one form of psychic protection that many, many people do several times a day without even knowing that they're doing it. So, yeah, do we need psychic protection? Do we all need it? Absolutely. We need to be aware that there are going to be constant forces acting upon us. That's a basic law of physics. And those laws act upon us on every level of being, whether it's in our physical state, i.e. things like remembering to stop at a stop sign, whether it's in our emotional state, when that could be being able to not respond in kind to someone else's anger because we're able to separate ourselves from it, whether it's in the mental state, where it's not being drawn away from the subject we're supposed to be focusing on and moving into a daydream instead, whether it's in the spiritual state, where it's being able to focus on our uplifting ourselves and staying in the light in the direction that we want to be headed and not be pulled off into the negatives that are so prevalent in our world today. So absolutely, all those things I've talked about, by the way, are different planes of existence, literally, that we human beings live on. We don't live just on one plane. We live on the physical plane, the emotional plane, the mental plane, the spiritual plane, and we do require, while we're living here on Earth, that physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, psychic protection, because we are still in a very developmental state, and it's real easy for us to get pulled off track. But if we employ psychic protection, we don't. We stay true to ourselves, we stay true to our belief system, whatever it may be. We stay in a state where we can remain confident and calm. We can make better, clear choices. We can remain clear-headed. We will not attract negative people, events, or circumstances into our lives. This can be life-changing, Sharon, life-changing.
So when I look at a name, it lets me know if you're pulling in the negative or if you're surrounding yourself with negative people. So you're saying a way of protecting yourself from that is literally to stay in prayer or do constant prayer work, throughout your day.
That certainly is one way. I'm not a super religious person, so I'm mostly addressing that to your listeners who might be. I personally would be more inclined towards meditation. And here I'm not talking about a guided meditation that is, pretend you're a bird and imagine yourself flying and feeling the air around you. That's a guided meditation. A true meditation, the way it's taught in the Eastern arts, would be to sit with your mind empty and still and focusing only on your breathing for 20 minutes or so, following a progressive relaxation. And that type of meditation completely clears your mind of everything that's in it. It clears your energy system, it clears your aura, and not only does it clear it, but because your brain isn't grabbing hold of every single thought or emotion that passes by, you've actually protected yourself from anything that would attempt to come in and do harm by distracting you. Okay? So prayer, for the average person, is, from my perspective, a form of meditation. Many people achieve that meditative state through prayer. I achieve it through sitting meditation, which is something I teach all of my students in my very beginning level of psychic development. Sharon, one of the reasons that psychic development has always been, or protection in psychic development has always been so important to me, is because I'm a psychic development teacher, and I think developing your psychic abilities, your psychic skills that we all have is very, very important, especially as we're moving forward into a more evolved state of humanity on this planet. Psychic protection is intrinsic to the foundation of any kind of psychic development, because you need to be in a safe space that you create yourself if you're going to be able to open those psychic senses safely. So I've been teaching psychic protection to my students for over 40 years, and I can tell you, it has changed lives for the better. It's changed lives. So it can be achieved, the rudimentary form, through prayer, through meditation, and also through many, many visualization techniques. There are also coming out on the market right now some really interesting physical aids. For example, if you were seeing me right now, I would be sitting here wearing what's called a zero, Z-E-R-O, point pendant, and they're available to purchase online. I don't sell them myself, but double check that you're buying it from a reputable source. Look at all of the references and feedback from people who own them before you purchase one, because there are so many people who are making it right now. 0 Point is a technology that utilizes radiation and light waves and magnetic currents and different technologies to create a electronic field or an electromagnetic field around an object. In this case, it's a pendant, but it could just as easily be a pen or a little thingy you stick on your computer, like a little sticky tab. And what that will do is to actually set up a field around you, much like a radio frequency field, that neutralizes a lot of the radiation that's coming at you from the planet. A lot of people who have environmental illness have relief when they utilize these tools. Psychics are able to do much better readings because what I call their psychic headspace is clearer. Especially if they're at the beginner level and they don't really know how to protect themselves yet, these little 0 Point creations aid in giving you that protection until you're able to do it on your own. It's kind of like training wheels. And there are many, many other tools and so forth that people have created that are available. If you look up psychic protection tools online, you're going to find thousands of them. So it's really a matter of researching them and definitely looking at the referrals and at the feedback that has been given by people who've actually used those tools. There are brainwave technologies. I love to work with the brainwaves from Centerpoint, the technologies from the Monroe Institute of Applied Sciences in Faber, Virginia. There are also a lot of free frequencies available on YouTube that your listeners can try. And what you would do is look for a frequency that sets up a wavelength. Now this is it's brain entrainment. These waves that you'll be listening to, you listen through your ears, but it trains the brain, and that brain can set up an electromagnetic field that can be protective around you. And some of those brain waves will be raising consciousness, which in itself can be protective, and some of them will actually set up a current around you where you're able to remain peaceful in the midst of the craziness in our world right now, which allows you to not be swept up by things that are unreal or false, to be able to tell the difference between reality and unreality. Believe it or not, psychic protection helps you to do that, to be able to be independent and make your own choices and your own decisions instead of being swept up by mass hysteria.
So I want to make a comment on that. First of all, is that you mentioned the Monroe Institute, and I want to remind everybody that I am a trained facilitator for the Monroe Institute, and I give the Gateway program, which is the introduction, so that once you have that program, you got all the vocabulary and your brain started to be trained and you know how to continue. And my next seminar on that is in September. If you're interested, go to knowthename.com, go to the services, not the services page, the schedule page, and then go to September and you can get all the details. The other thing is that I wear, when you were talking about your 0 Point pendant, I wear a bracelet by Q Cubed, which does the effective thing all around me. If anybody's interested in knowing how to get that one in particular, you can just email me at info@knowthename. I'm happy to give you my source, but like Sandy said, there's plenty of them out there. That's the one I happen to have chosen. And then one of the best deals on the market, I swear this is such an incredible deal, I like to share it with everybody, is if you go to Sandy's website, which is her name, Sandy spelt the normal way, Sandy, and Anastasi is ANASTASI.com. And if you go there, she has this membership that, and I want to tell you, I'm a member of it. As much as I know, I am still learning all the time from her membership site. And for approximately $200 a year, you can go anywhere on that membership site. She has so many classes that she offers. It's just incredible. You can just keep learning. And whatever price it is when you come in, that's the price you get to keep renewing at if you want to do it year after year and keep learning from Sandy, which is just an incredible deal. And that's $200 a year, which I think makes it very affordable. Or you can pay by month, if I understand that right, Sandy.
That's correct. A month it's $20 a month, and you can cancel at any time without penalty. I also should add that there are over 200, it's all audio, everything that's on the VIP are audio classes. They're MP3 and they're fully downloadable. So if you join for that $20 a month and you just listen to 5 classes and that's all you want, you can download them and then not renew the next month. So then you've gotten 5 classes for $20. People say, Sandy, you are crazy to have done that. I do it because people join and find out the value of all of the classes in there, and there are hundreds of them, and so they stay members. And we also meet monthly. In fact, our VIP, this is private, but our VIP is meeting this evening. So our membership gets to meet with me on a monthly basis to discuss whatever's being studied or practiced or what's going on in the world. Or it's a wonderful way to catch up. And we also have a VIP community where people can actually post on and discuss the things they're learning and get partners to practice with. It's kind of like Facebook, but it keeps you in touch with all of the other members. And all of that, plus discounts throughout the year on things like readings and a discount on a birthday reading. There are all kinds of extra perks, and all of that is available for that $200 a year or $20 a month. It's insane. And
it is. It's crazy.
I offer it because it's so important for people to learn this stuff.
I don't know how you're barely covering your costs at that fee, but I think it's absolutely incredible that you offer that. And I just think that's wonderful. So it's perfect timing right now for us to break for our first commercial break. So stay tuned. We'll have more on psychic protection when we return with Sandy Anastasi.
Your conscious connection to a more mindful world. OMTimes Radio, IOM FM. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
I'm Kathy Williams, host of Sexy Mom Abundant Life radio show on Thursdays at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. On the show, we explore living abundantly in every area of your life. Ways to let go of limiting patterns and beliefs and to step into the flow of creativity and possibility, knowing you are supported by the universe.
Just by being here, you've shown that you are an action taker and committed to your own growth and transformation. You believe that within yourself, you have everything you need to fulfill your dreams and overcome your life challenges. But how do you access all that? Sandy Anastasi is a psychic, astrologer, coach, and creator of the Anastasi system of psychic development. She has your answers and a special offer for new clients and students. When you sign up for her free newsletter, you'll get a special gift that will help change your life. As thousands of people already have experienced, she will get you there. Go to www.sandyanastasi.com to sign up for Sandy's newsletter now.
These are the sounds of a dinner that almost didn't happen. A dinner now served, thanks to people like you. Due to COVID-19, 17 million more Americans may face hunger. Feeding America is helping our neighbors in need. And if you're able, you can too. Donations are being accepted at feedingamerica.org/coronavirus. Brought to you by the Ad Council and Feeding America, 200 food banks strong.
Welcome back to Luminescence, Common Sense Spirituality, the radio show that disseminates esoteric knowledge and common sense spirituality. I'm your host, Sharon Lynn Wyeth, and our special guest today is Sandy Anastasi. And her website is her name, SandyAnastasi.com. And Sandy is spelled the normal way, and Anastasi is A-N-A-S-T like Tom, A-S-I. And those are all S's like in Sam. Okay? So Sandy, is there such a thing as curses? Can you curse somebody, or can you be the recipient of somebody else's curse?
Actually, Sharon, it's sad to say, but that is true. And that's a whole topic that, God, we could spend a whole hour just on that. But let me just start at the basics. Folks, your thoughts is where your manifested reality begins. So if you have a fellow employee at work that is really irritating you, and every day when you go in, you look at her or him, and you find yourself disgusted, and you project that thought of disgust at that person, and you do a mental, emotional push away, keep away from me, unbeknownst to yourself, you have just sent that negative push away, that feeling of disgust towards that person. And if that person is in a daydream, if they're not protected, if they're just relaxed and not paying attention to anything in the world and wide open, they are suddenly going to start feeling bad, feeling depressed, feeling sick. Do you see what you did to them? Without even consciously intending it, you made them feel terrible. Now, it's true that there are some people who are much more powerful, emotional, or we call that empathic, and or telepathic projectors than others. So some people do a better job of clobbering other people with their thoughts and emotions. But all of us have the potential to do that. And if we do that to someone over and over and over and over again, the energy of what we're doing accumulates. And here we are, the average ordinary person who doesn't even think they're psychic, and you have just psychically cursed another person through repetition of a negative attitude and emotion. So please, folks, don't do that. Okay, keep your negative thoughts and your nasties to yourselves. Okay, if someone bothers you, avoid them, but you don't have to keep projecting nasty at them. So that's the most basic form of a curse, and it doesn't even involve any kind of magic or anything else. Now, on the other end,
I want to ask a question really fast in there, Sandy, before we go to the other side of that. You know, in the movie, and I'm trying to think of the name of it right now, it'll come to me, but the main character, Fiddler on the Roof, and the main character says, oh, the people that they want to keep away from them, they go, oh God, this is their prayer, please bless that person and keep them as far away from me as possible. So is that a viable prayer when you're having a problem with somebody?
It absolutely is. And you see, whenever you bring in the God force energy, whatever your belief system is, whether you see God as a man or a woman or an energy or Jupiter, king of the gods, or whatever you see, a higher power, when you turn your need over to that higher power, you're automatically bringing in a higher energy that is recognizing and saying, okay, I want this to change or end in my life, and I am going to follow what this higher energy, your higher self, God, whatever you will, I'm going to follow that path, and I will be led towards whatever I need in order to avoid that person or situation that's bothering me. And all I have to do at that point is follow what feels better. Abraham Hicks says that, and it works every time. Follow what feels better, and you will gradually be led into a good feeling life situation that doesn't include that person or situation. So absolutely, Sharon, it works.
Okay,
and
so
it's a really safe way for the average person to recreate their life in a positive way that excludes that nasty thing that they're having to deal with.
Okay, so let's say somebody else has those nasty thoughts about us. How do we protect ourselves? Is that we're going back into meditation and prayer, or is there something else we can also do?
Okay, and now you get into some really, I think of it as fun stuff, okay? And people, your listeners may laugh, but don't laugh until you give it a try. I teach my students a lot of visualization techniques and even some practical physical techniques that are just easy to do and can remove the problem without you doing a whole lot to have to do it, okay? If you are, for example, sitting at lunchtime and you've got a group of people around you and you're hearing this really loud terribly noisy stuff going on at the next table, and maybe there's a guy who's yelling at his wife, and it's very unpleasant. And what you do is you visualize a giant bubble around you, maybe even around your whole table, and you coat the bubble on the outside with mirrors. And you hold that visualization for maybe 27 seconds, okay? Because that's how long it's going to take it to become solid until you and your friends get up and leave the table. And guess what? All of a sudden, it's going to literally sound like the sound at the next table went down. And it may even be that the guy stops yelling at his wife because, you see, now you're reflecting back at him all the noise he was trying to create to gain attention, which is what he was actually doing. So instead of affecting you, it's clobbering him.
Okay, so I have a question. As you're saying, we put a bubble around ourselves. Would it be just as effective? I'm just curious here, to put a bubble around them and with mirrors facing inward so that nobody else around any place is affected by them?
That would be effective. It also is very, very close bordering, Sharon, on something which is called black magic. Everybody's heard of black magic, but most people don't understand that when we project that nasty thought at another person, when we put that other person in a bubble they can't get out of, that they have no control over, and we put mirrors inside of it to shine back at them, it might be effective. But you see, we've interfered with their free will.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. And that's the number one law of the universe. You can't ever interfere.
Black magic occurs anytime you interfere with the free will of another being. And I don't care how benevolent you are in your desires. If you're interfering with someone else's free will, it's black magic. The only time you're allowed to disobey that law, it's a universal law from my perspective, the only time you're allowed to disobey that is if you are directly protecting yourself from a direct conscious attack on you. Then you're allowed to do whatever is necessary because your survival comes first.
Do you have that right sometimes to interfere with somebody else's free will when it's your child until they're of legal age?
That's a very fine line. It's a very fine line. And I'm going to direct your listeners to listen to some of the works of Abraham Hicks where she's discussing how to raise a child. She does a great job, Esther Hicks, when she channels Abraham. She talks about needing to give those children the freedom and the free will to be able to grow up knowing right from wrong. If you're protecting your child from everything, that child can grow up almost without being able to move through the adult world in a healthy way. For example, I had a very good friend years back who constantly kept her baby in a protective blue bubble at home. As soon as she was outside with her in a baby carriage, the kid was in a blue bubble. Anytime they were outdoors, the kid was in that blue bubble, to the point that when the kid was drawing pictures of the family in kindergarten class, there was the family standing outside of the house, and the house was in a blue bubble, and the kid was in a blue bubble. The kid actually drew it. Okay?
Wow.
Well, when this kid got into her elementary school years, second, third grade, the teacher found her one day standing in the middle of the hall, just staring off into space, with a vacant look on her face, not able to move. And the teacher said, what are you doing here? Classes had changed. It was between classes. And she stumbled talking to the teacher and said, I don't know where to go. I don't know where I am. Because, you see, she had left the class late and was in her blue bubble and literally couldn't direct herself to her lunch room, which was on the other side of the hall. The teacher had to take her by the hand and lead her there, and reported that to my friend and said, something's going on that's really weird with your daughter. She's been in the school for X number of years and didn't know where she was going. On her own, she was not able to navigate the hall at 8 years old. That was not correct, okay? So you've got to be careful when you are doing these things, especially with a child. Do protect your child, but don't overprotect your child. And the more important thing, Sharon, is to teach your child how to protect themselves, what to be involved in, what not to be involved in. Realize that your child is also a thinking being. Don't keep away from them what you're doing. One woman, that was one of my students, had a son who was a bedwetter, and she took a stone, crystal, and with her son, together, they charged the crystal with their thoughts. They projected it into the crystal, that anytime he had to go to the bathroom, that at night when he was sleeping, that crystal would wake him up so he could go. And he put that crystal into his pillowcase, and he never had a bedwetting problem again. It worked. But you see, she brought her son into what she was doing. And then she was no longer overpowering his free will. Do you see how that works?
Yeah, that's really cool. My understanding of universal laws is the number one universal law is that we are all responsible for our own actions and our own choices. We do not blame anybody else for any of our choices or any of our actions. And that the number two law is that we do not have the right to, with our choices, to infringe on somebody else's choice.
I love that, Sharon. I think you can't go wrong with those two laws.
Yeah.
I would also like to add another one in there. Or something for your listeners to consider, is that in addition to, that's kind of like do unto others from the Bible what you would like done to yourself, right? It's the same concept. So if your listeners come from the Judeo-Christian ethic and they utilize that, what you just said fits right in with that.
Yes, that's what's called the golden rule. My sister always says, I like the platinum rule better. And I asked her one time, I said, why are you always saying that? What's the platinum rule? Help educate me here. And she said, do unto others as they would like to be treated, not as you would like them to treat you. And I thought, okay, different perspective, but then you'd have to know how they want to be treated. And is that being treated that way really in the highest and best for them? Or really, do we always just want to come from love and let that love be appropriate?
I'm going to pick your concept there, Sharon. I think that when you get into treat others the way they want to be treated, you're opening a really big can of worms. Number one, who says as you said, how they want to be treated? And if you are thinking you know how to treat them, you're just getting ready to interfere with them and their life. Because you really don't know how they want to be treated. Not unless you sit down and have that conversation with them. And very often, people themselves don't really know how they want to be treated. They think they know, but they haven't really sat down and thought about it. Because guess what, Sharon? If they really thought it through, many, many people would no longer be living in the situations that they're currently living in.
Now, that's an interesting thought. For how many of us put up with life? Or there's a lot of people lately in their readings with me that I go through their timelines with them, and I think, are we existing right now or are we living right now? And there's really a difference.
And Sharon, on that same topic, I do readings as well, and my reading special coming up in June is going to be all about being at that juncture, ready to move forward in life, because I feel our society is getting ready to explode into activity. And here you are at this juncture in life, and you've got multiple possibilities, multiple life paths ahead of you. How do you choose which path is the right path for you when you cannot see all of them completely, and yet you know that some are going to be better than others? Some of them will have pitfalls. Really, how do you know how to choose? And so that's what I'm going to be helping people with during my sessions with them in June, if they register for that particular reading. And that's pretty much what you're just talking about.
Right.
People
Now,
needing to make clear-headed choices, and make those choices knowing that they themselves are responsible for the choice and for whatever comes after, not someone else. Do not ever turn your power over to someone else, folks. If you go to a psychic and the psychic gives you good advice, that's what it is, good advice. you are still responsible for the choices and decisions that you make.
Yeah, that's rule number one. You're always responsible. Real quickly, because we don't have a lot of time until our next commercial break, would you mind addressing, Sandy, do you need protection when you're meditating to make sure that the good is coming in and not something else interfering? Or when you're having dreams? And then we say at sleep, we go out of our body, so we transverse the universe at that time. Does a simple prayer always work before a meditation or going to bed at night? Or is there something else also that we ought to be doing?
Well, you've touched several different things there, and I'm going to try to go through them very quickly. If you are doing the sitting style meditation, I think of it as yoga style meditation that is taught in the East, Sai Baba, Yogi Ananda, and so forth. If you're doing that type of meditation, you do not need protection, because that meditation, focusing on the breath, single-pointed, empty mind, that meditation actually creates your own protection. They teach you to not daydream. They teach you to not follow thoughts that are outside. If a thought passes through your mind, you let it go. Therefore, you're creating this protection where you are solid. Nothing's getting through to you while you're meditating. It's a great place to be, folks. Still-minded. It relaxes the mind. The mind does not rule you. The mind becomes a tool. What rules you becomes your higher self, a higher part of you that is not affected by these physical things that we've been talking about. Now, in the dream state, the average person shouldn't get all excited and say, oh my God, I'm afraid to go to sleep at night because I'm not protected. If you're saying your prayers, if you're going to, I always say to my students, don't have conversations with family members or friends within an hour before you go to sleep, especially not if those people are complainers. As long as you disengage from the world around you about an hour before you go to sleep, and you do something which is relaxing and enjoyable, you read a book, you watch a fun TV program, something happy, not negative, you're going to go to sleep, and your dreams will be nice and happy, and you will have a nice deep sleep. Also, don't go to sleep overtired, because that doesn't allow you to go into that deeper sleep where you achieve the alpha state where you get a recharge. Okay, when your dreams happen. The average person does leave their body and astral travel every night. I believe we do that to recharge, and if we go to sleep in the right state, that's perfectly normal, and none of us get invaded or psychically attacked. Now,
okay, before we continue, we've got a break hold that thought, please. We've got a break for our second and last commercial break. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back with Luminescence, Common Sense Spirituality.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers, pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
Mark Twain said the two most important days in your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why. The why is hidden in your name. Sharon Lynn Wyeth has created a scientific way of deciphering your name to reveal your contract for this lifetime. And your name even specifies the 7 areas that are subsets of your soul's overall goal. Your name identifies who you are, to both yourself and others. What does your name say about you? Contact Sharon Lynn Wyeth at info@knowthename.com for your stunning name review.
The United States has the highest rate of incarceration in the world. At the Equal Justice Initiative, we believe mass incarceration has to end. There is this presumption of dangerousness and guilt that gets assigned to Black and brown people. We have to confront our history of racial injustice and commit to a new era of truth. There's something better waiting for us, something that feels more like freedom. Truth can inspire change. Please learn more at EJI.org.
Welcome back to Luminescence, Common Sense Spirituality. I'm your host, Sharon Lynn Wyeth, and our special guest is Sandy Anastasi, and we're talking about psychic protection. And Sandy, I'm so sorry I had to stop you in the middle of your answer. We were talking about protecting yourself. We've already covered meditation and dreams, and now we're on to transversing the universe.
And let me pick up where we left off with dreams, and also another comment on protecting yourself in meditation. Folks, if you are using a meditation tape or recording, if it's a guided meditation, you do need to protect. And a prayer, putting yourself in white light, using the protective techniques that I have in my VIP section. I have a great psychic protection class on my website. I also have a downloadable, it gets one psychic protective technique a week. That's on the outside of my site. It's a purchasable program, but very inexpensive. And I also have a lot of free tips on my YouTube channel. That's under my name, Sandy Anastasi. And those psychic protection tips that are there are totally free. So if you're using a guided meditation technique, you should definitely protect yourself in some way before you do the guided meditation, because you're not the one in control of that. If you're guiding yourself through a meditation, no protection is going to be needed because you are the person who's controlling it. Likewise with dreams, the average person does not have to protect before going to bed other than saying your prayers, doing your normal thing that you do, whatever that is, your normal routine, which I said before our break. But if you are someone who has embarked upon the path of developing your psychic skills, if you're involved in anything which is involving the unseen world in terms of your work or your practices, or if you're involved with somebody, maybe in your household, who is, you then should be employing some form of psychic protection before bed as well. And again, the psychic protection tips that I have on my website as a class, the tips that I have on my YouTube channel, which are free, and the psychic protection class that's in my VIP section on my website will all give you tools for doing that. But minimally, I would put myself in a balloon before I went to bed, and I'd mirror that balloon on the outside, visualizing it, in addition to saying my prayers, minimally, to be sure that I was safe. In a physical sense, you can also put a clockwise circle of salt, sea salt, literally on the floor around your bed while you sleep, and that's going to keep everything out, and it will also keep you in. So you're not going to astral travel and go and, for example, visit somebody you know is causing you harm while you sleep. Okay? Sharon, let's talk about the universe and protection in the universe. Can you be more specific?
Well, a lot of people, when they're astral traveling, they can get guidance. They can run into different entities, different energies. And so how do you know that where you're visiting when you're astral traveling at night, that you're going to a positive place versus one that could do you harm?
Sharon, again, for the average person who's not pursuing any work in the psychic field, that's not going to be a problem. It's interesting. Think about it this way. If you're on the beach and you're the person who really wants to go and sunbathe, and you love the beach, you love the sound of the waves, but you don't even bother to go in the water. You're just really enjoying watching. You don't need protection. Okay, you don't need a life preserver. But if you start to go in the water and you start to swim, and you've never swum before, you need a life preserver, a life vest. And if you start to go out deep, you might also want to swim at a beach where there are some lifeguards and other protection, because you see the sharks in the water know that you're there. And so you want somebody who's going to be able to keep watch at the same time while you're swimming. And that's the same way that our psychic protection works. If you're not really involved with it, your abilities, your involvement is so rudimentary, you're not going to be attracting people who are trying to attack you. What you will be attracting would be that person at work that you're in the middle of an argument with. You might end up tired in the morning if you were sleeping without protection because you were busy having a fight with them all night long in your sleep. But that's not going to be debilitating. If, on the other hand, you're the person who is beginning to develop your psychic skills, or perhaps you're naturally very psychic, now when you go out and you're sleeping, you're literally going out of your body with a conscious awareness, even though it's in your sleep, and you go and visit people and situations and things that maybe could get you into trouble. Well, then you need your life preserver. And your life preserver is going to be some form of protection before you went to sleep. More than prayers, I would say putting yourself in what I call an energy balloon, and I have that on my website. Putting yourself into, I actually sometimes, well, every night before I go to sleep, I do something called the Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram. And that is for free, under free tools on my website, so you can learn how to do it there. And it will protect your whole household and yourself, anybody who's in your household. And that's kind of like having the lifeguard on the beach watching to make sure none of the sharks are going to get you. So again, if you are really not involved, if you're listening to this program because it's just something it's a passing interest, don't go crazy and think something's after you every night when you sleep. Your prayers are fine. But if you're studying psychic development, or you're with somebody in your household who is, because that could get you exposed too, then take some of these things more seriously and learn how to do those extra protections, and you're going to be safe.
I want to give you a quote, Sandy, from Dr. James Giordano. Now, he's a professor of neuroscience at Georgetown University. He has worked with DARPA in the U.S. Army. He is working on the Human Brain Project. He's a consultant for that, and he wrote a book that's called Brain Science from Bench to Battlefield, The Realities, the Risks of Neuroweapons. So when he was asked what the top exponential technologies are that are going to be game-changer technologies for our civilization that can affect everything from healthcare to defense to manufacturing, his group identified it as nanotechnology, bio, IT, and neurotechnology, and then later on they added quantum technology. So neurotechnology, he goes on in his book to define as the attack on the brain, that there is a warfare right now going over that can attack the brain, and depending on what energies are being sent from machines like HAARP or other machines, what energies are being sent, that they can literally modulate somebody's thinking pattern to affect somebody's thinking through these energies. So my question is, and you look at all these shooters and everything else, and I wonder if that's what's happened to them. So my question is, how do we protect ourselves from that kind of technology?
Sharon, two things here I want to touch upon. First is I'm going to refer everyone to a book, an old book by Ram Dass. It's called Be Here Now. In that book, Ram Dass, who was a high school, or college kid, who was freaking out on LSD, he went to India, and he went out into the remote parts of India to visit Ram Dass went to visit Sai Baba, a well-known Indian guru, who had many, 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 many people who paid him visits annually just to see this wonderful gem of a human being who had attained a altered, very, very enlightened state of consciousness. So Ram Dass went to visit Sai Baba, and he had a bunch of LSD in with him. And he went to Sai Baba, and he said, "Here, these are for you." And he popped all these pills in Sai Baba's hand, and he expected Sai Baba would take, one. Sai Baba took the whole handful and swallowed it. And Ram Dass hung around waiting for Sai Baba to freak out. He knew the guy was going to have this amazing LSD experience. He was just going to go off the charts, and he couldn't wait to see what happened. And he waited for 2 days. And in 2 days, Sai Baba's personality didn't change. He conducted himself the same way he always did. And at the end of the 2 days, Ram Dass said, "I have to ask you a question. How could you possibly, eat all that LSD and have no reaction. And Ram Dass said, because I'm not living on the same level that you're living on. I'm already where you're hoping those pills will take you. I.e., Ram Dass had already attained that enlightened state where he was one with his higher consciousness. We think of that as our higher self. So I'm going to return back to you and say that when people, either through meditation or psychic development or religious pursuits, spiritual studies of any kind, when they lift their consciousness to the level of their higher self, nothing that's being done to the physical body, the emotional state, the mental state, the brain, nothing has any effect on them, because the higher self is now in control of all those things.
I think that is so reassuring to people, because I know from a lot of write-ins to me, that was one question that was really making somebody nervous. Okay, everybody.
And now I want to address that same question, if I might, in a purely physical thing. And I don't know this. I don't know anything that I'm about to say. But this is what I've got from my own guides in meditation, is that the communication grid on our planet is getting ready to change. And when it changes, all the nanotechnology that has come out so far won't be effective, because it's hooked into the old grid. Now, that doesn't mean that in the future there can't be new nanos, but the old ones won't work. So quit worrying.
I think that's fabulous. Sandy, thank you so much for joining us. Our hour always goes so fast, especially when Sandy is here. We always close out our show with the music The Shine by Dee L'Amour. And then I would like to say that next week, who we are having on as our guest is all about DNA and how that DNA affects us and how we can raise that level. And that's with Sherry Anshara. Thank you again, Sandy, for joining us. This is Sharon Lynn Wyeth signing off.
She remembers so long ago, gazing in the mirror, an image of an angel smiling back at her. No wounds or imperfections, just beauty and its glow. Her laughter and her heart, a reflection of her soul. And I want to shine like the sun and smile to stop the rain. And I want to dance with the wind and believe in dreams again. When the paintbrush of light stroke the canvas of her, the light slightly dimmed, her reflection unseen, and all that she knew, and all that would be, it vanished like the sun rays on a shimmer